Absolutely. I'm sort of that school of thought, especially when I read a lot of his teachings, and also being a person who worked in the government. I think, and I don't want to go overly deep in my views, but I'll almost like give it almost like how society views things, right?
Yeah.
The government, right? What's the government? What does everyone think the government? The government's supposed to help us, when we have things. Not help us. Of course, you do things for yourself, but they're going to come and help us, right? But where are the problems coming from? Who creates these problems, right?
The government.
Outside of your life, right? I mean, obviously, there are society problems, right?
Yeah.
But, medicine, you got plants. Plants have been used, right? But you have an industry with money, pharma, right? The government goes, well, man, for our society, for our government to survive, right? Our businesses have to do well. Not lobbyism, but like, you see where I'm getting at, where it's like this, they create problems, they solve them, or they don't, or they make you think that we are. And what society, especially government entities, there's no face. That's something that you're taught. This is something that I think people, I learned even when I read Carl Jung, there's no one individual. They make you think that, president or representative, these faces that they're in a government, there's no face.
So that's something they teach you when you work in a government job is that you like almost a lack of accountability. If someone has a problem with a certain issue, there's no one person you can take down and blame.
Well, think about it like this. Every government agency has a mission, and they fulfill that mission. Like you're saying, they fulfill that mission.
Yeah.
Federal Reserve. We protect monetary policy. My friends who traders, why doesn't the Fed raise rates? The Fed has one objective. That's an example. This is what they'll do. This branch of the government has one objective. This is what they will carry out. It's not something that they're trying to amend. And then, beside the fact of just having a mission, something that you get taught is, because then when I was working in government, I wanted to go deeper to like FBI and some of these agencies, right? But
what agency were you working for when you were in the government?
Federal Reserve,
okay.
Which is quasi. So it's like you're sort of like financy, but you're also like, I have really sensitive information, essentially. So I can't really and that affected my personality because I sort of had to lay low with everything. So, but it's sort of like you can't really, not that you can't have a face, but you're supposed to be laying low and you have sensitive information that no one can really have, right? So understanding that, and me, when I joined that and the questioning and whatever, I went through the clearance. You have to go through a clearance. So I was like, man, I sort of want to go to the next level because I'm a very intellectually curious person. Like, I want to find out what people don't, I sort of see the programs and the patterns and I'm like, this is not difficult to see through. So I want to see what the person who's creating these things or how these things are being pushed out. What's the information that we're not able to see in the everyday because they're having a different mindset perspective than us, right? So everyone's like, now with a lot of information and everything out, everyone's like, oh my God, look at these government officials. They're making all this money. They don't really care about us. Like, they fun, through the pandemic and other examples through life. Our generation is, but for me, I was like, man, I got to figure out what. But then at the same time, you lose individualism because everything you're supposed to do is for them, right? So I remember when I early joined, they say something like, we come first, something comes second. I can't remember, like country or your family, something. You come third, right? Almost like I think.
So government first above all.
Or whatever, our
whatever
agency,
the objective,
our agency
Federal Reserve,
first, whatever, and then, which is basically almost like I forget. Someone was saying like this is like Catholic school teaching, like when you go to or a religious school, sort of when you go into religion, similar type of mind methodologies, essentially. So I sort of saw that, and I'm like, of course I'm in it. I want to be the person to help, right? And through my experience, I was able to have this experience where I was able to interpret like, all right, this should maybe be the answer, but they're picking this. Huh? Oh, at the end of the day, it's people. So no, it's people interacting with each other. So there's some sort of relationship. I'm not going to go. I don't want to say lobbyism. I don't want to get into that because I worked for the place. It's a place I respect. It gave me a lot of things, and I don't want to go too deep into that. But it's like I would see things, and then it would resonate with me, and I would be like, something's not making sense. And then I would have my own experiences where it's like, why am I not winning? I'm not winning here. I'm not nothing. It just seems like I'm not winning. And someone told me, like, I remember when I was at a certain point, and this is everything sort of happening at once when I was getting to this low point. And that's when I was working in government. And I was like, the person was like, bruh, why do you think this is going to change? Or is it's like this, it's this, and they're doing this. And I was like, oh, right. So you get this understanding that the way society and governments depict things over here, and everything's the middle. Like, especially now, it's like you're on this side or on that side. When in reality, they're so close to each other. But still, what society, more so I would say society, government does, it's a nature. There's still this line that they create in between these two things, right? So for example, let's take two emotions. Happy, sad. You're really happy. You know what I'm saying? Are you happy with your life?
Yeah. The infomercial. Yeah, it's like, are you happy? Are you really happy though?
Are you happy then you're sad. Are you really sad? When we know as humans, we have all these emotions that we go through. So you're not in one set precedent.
People happy cry. That's the thing that people do. They're so happy that they cry, and then they're sad and crying, and they start laughing. So they're much closer than you think.
Those were some of the themes I saw that Carl Jung would bring out.
Yeah,
and then especially through day-to-day experience, I would start to and then of course Buddhist philosophies, Eastern philosophies help me like yin and yang, like you can't have this without this type thing.
So I grew up like a lot of people with a naive view of the government where it's this entity that's out for your best interest, and of course they would never do anything wrong. It's the government. It's the United States of America. We're the best country in the world, and the government of this country is going to protect us at all costs. And you know, I pay taxes, so technically they work for me, and they're going to do the things that benefit me. And then I started learning about things like something that happened in both of our lifetimes is the 2008 crash, where the government bailed out all the banks, and then all of these small businesses and people lost their entire life savings because of the mortgage crisis. And that made me step back and think like, the government protecting corporations, the government protecting their own self-interest over the interest of the average person, that doesn't seem like this government that I grew up with. Almost like your bubble being popped the more you learn.
They don't care about you.
The government gets inflated. And then the second thing, there have been a lot of things, but the most recent thing on my mind about, you think the government is out to give you a better life? You think the government is out to make you happier and richer? There, I don't know if you saw this, but there's an article on Business Insider that didn't get a lot of traction, but 182 members of Congress, I believe it was 182 members of Congress violated the Stock Trade Act, which means that you're not allowed to trade on insider information, and you have all of they're the first ones to know which laws are probably going to be passed, which laws aren't going to be passed. Are we going to be more stringent on social media that affects companies like Facebook and Twitter? So they have all this knowledge before things actually go into play, and that can make you hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. And not only did 182 million people violate the Stock Trade Act, which meant that either they personally traded on inside information or someone in their immediate family did. So they basically, I don't know exactly what happened, but if you're someone in Congress, you could tell your wife, hey, I'm not allowed to say, but you should put more money in Facebook. And your wife makes money. Your wife makes money. You make money. And part of the article is that I found out that most of these things have an ethical internal committee. So people in Congress are not prosecuted for insider trading in the same way that the average citizen would be, or some guy on Wall Street. They have an internal ethics committee that most of the time does nothing, and other times gives them a $4,000 fine, something like that. It was insane. Like, you could make $500K on a single trade and your fine will be $4,000. So of course you would fucking do it. And then reporters are questioning people in Congress like Nancy Pelosi and Dan Crenshaw, and
30 what?
Yeah, and
we're crazy.
Yeah,
man.
she's worth millions and millions of dollars, making $200K a year, and I'm like, how, something doesn't add up, and people ask Congress members about it, and they're like, we it's a free market, and we should be allowed to trade just like you. And I'm thinking, you're not trading just like me. Which laws are going to pass and which aren't. You're on the inside. That's the definition of inside information. And there have been so many things like that with money. And I'm bringing that up because you worked for the Federal Reserve, and I'm thinking about the way that my bubble has been popped with the government looking out for our best financial interests. Stories like that, like the crash and the violating the Stock Trade Act, made me take a step back and realize government doesn't give a shit about how much money I have or don't have, as long as I'm paying taxes on it. They'll come after me if I don't pay my taxes, but I need to look out for my own best interest, whether it's and taking care of my own investment strategy or investing in crypto, whatever it is. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit about the average person. They will do whatever they need to do to fill their own pockets and do what's technically legal to keep the country running.
Yeah. I wanted to allude to basically lobbyism goes on. And not that I can point out, but I would be like, oh, these two people have a relationship. It's people.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Yeah. You're human. They're human too.
Human.
Like,
They're not this special thing.
And guys, this is a quick reminder to check out AUXORO Premium, the best deal in premium podcasting. On AUXORO Premium, you gain access to bonus episodes, the unlicensed therapy series, the ability to submit topic suggestions for the podcast, exclusive Ask Me Anything episodes, and the entire premium catalog for only $5 per month. Go to auxoro.supercast.com, that's AUXORO.supercast.com, to join the premium gang today.